So I still don't have a brilliant setup for my videos at the moment. As you know, I'm moving house and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot going to be going on. I'm going to be extremely busy for the next few months. So unfortunately, my nice setup that I normally have with all of my books as my backdrop, my books are going to be largely in storage for the next couple of months, and so we are working with what we've got, which at the moment is this bedroom that has remained undecorated as of yet. Got a new carpet down, that was something that happened this week. Eventually I'll open up and talk a little bit more about my new house and my new situation and things, but as of now I'm here to do a rather large set of reviews. These books are either just newly released or are not coming out for a little while yet. And let me know which ones down below you're interested in reading, or if you've already read any of them, also let me know that. And I'm just going to plough through them in no particular order. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is this one. This is obviously a proof copy because it's not got the writing on the front, but this is The Summer Job by Lizzie Dent. I read this a little while ago, but I don't believe it's coming out till April. This was absolutely fantastic. So this story is escapism at its finest, because I mean, we all know what's going on in the world, and the lockdown and the travel restrictions and everything, and this book takes us away to the Scottish Highlands and Islands, to a place that I love, a place that feels very familiar to me, the Isle of Skye and the Highlands. Obviously, if you've been around for a while, you'll know that I have a love affair with the Scottish Islands. When a book is set there, I'm obviously there for it. The imagery in this book is spot on. It really does take you to the Isle of Skye. It does describe the Highlands to you, and it just brings it home and will help you have a little bit of armchair escapism. This is a summer romance with a difference in that our main character, Birdie, is not your typical heroine. She isn't brooding, wistful and on the lookout for love as you normally find in sort of a in a romancy book. She's what I like to call perfectly imperfect. She swears, she lies, and she really messes up quite a bit. Now, all of these things for me make her seem more human, and I like that. I like how she wasn't just this picture perfect sort of whiter than white heroine. I like that she's got flaws. I like that she does things that we may not be able to identify with on a full level, because some of the things that Birdie has got up to in this book are just a little bit out there. In fact, the whole story is about this one great lie that she is told. She has pretended to be her best friend. Her best friend Heather is a wine expert. She turned down a job at this sort of ramshackle hotel in the Highlands as the wine expert amongst the staff, because she wants to run off and explore Italy with her new boyfriend. And Birdie, stuck in a bit of a hard place at the moment, decides that what she's going to do is pretty much impersonate her friend and take on the role as resident wine expert at this sort of rundown hotel. But upon arrival at the hotel, Birdie quickly realises that she may have got in a little bit deeper than she can manage, because this is not a rundown hotel. This is actually a Michelin star restaurant, and she's expected to be right up there at the top of her knowledge, and she's expected to be her best friend. So that's what I'm saying. The lie that Birdie has told is pretty extreme, but I really found it identifiable in that we've all done things, I'm sure, in the past that we are not so proud of. And I really like how Birdie shows the ugly side of sort of human nature, but yet she manages to do it in such a heartwarming way that you totally are rooting for her for the entire novel. Despite doing something as extremely unlikable as identity theft, we still end up with an extremely likable and human character, and for that reason I really love The Summer Job. And for fans of sort of the sexy brooding Scottish male character type, you might really enjoy the love interest in this book. The next book that I read is this one. This is The Keeper, and this one is a completely different style story to The Summer Job. This book is dark. This book opens with the body of Katie Shaw being found in the river, death being ruled as a supposed suicide. However, the residents within Widdringham's Women's Institute are less convinced of this official storyline, that Katie took her own life. And from there, the story goes. We are given an insight into the world of women's institutes and refuges from domestic violence. This is a gritty read. It is not a very easy read, and the storylines following all of the different women's experiences with domestic violence and coercive behaviour and just sort of toxic relationships in general is quite a heavy read. And it's quite impactful. This is told in a dual timeline, which we all know I do enjoy, because it gives an overall sort of drip feeding of information, and it keeps us hooked, and it gives us a view of the character then and the character now. It gives an overall better view of the character. As I say, this is not an easy read, but it's a read I really enjoyed. I found it quite easy to get stuck into it, and I was hooked almost instantly. It's one of those stories where you start to read it and you realise you really have to know what's happened, what has happened to Katie, and was it a suicide or has someone else been at the hand of a death? If you're triggered by domestic violence and things of that nature, this might not be one for you, because the author really does go there. And I'm sure that I read that she worked in... Yes, so prior to writing a novel, she spent a year working in the violence against women and girls sector, and this experience inspired a novel to keep her. The experiences feel very real, very raw, and overall this was a very compulsive read. The next book that I've got is this one. This is The Long, Long Afternoon. So this is set in the nostalgic setting of 1950s suburbia, which is a time that's rooted in the old, the good old days sentiment. However, at some point during the long, long afternoon, Joyce, who is an outwardly contented housewife and mother, disappears, leaving behind her life, her children, and a bloodstain on the kitchen floor. This is a mystery that shows the flaws in the fabric of the idealised American dream of the 1950s suburbia. With the sort of the freshly mown lawns and the sort of the sickly sweet facade. This was a time when women were sort of largely underestimated and hugely undervalued. The oppressive heat of the Californian summer setting is mirrored in the overall social angst that is building throughout the novel. And the social issues at the time are present within this book, which adds a good layer of realism, especially in regards to the black characters of the story. You can sort of feel the oppressive atmosphere building under the oppressive air of the white middle class dominance. I wouldn't call the conclusion of this novel shocking in any way. It was sort of, it plays out as you would expect as you read in. And so this isn't a particularly twisty-turny storyline. However, the story is still extremely compelling, and therefore it's really easy to get into it. And I also really, really love the cover of this one. This is a proof copy and it's coming out in February, but I really hope that they stick to this sort of 1950s nostalgia on the cover when it comes out, because I really do like it. The back of the book's beautiful as well. Look at that. And I have to say, I am a huge fan of the 1950s aesthetic. The next book that I've got is a completely different genre yet again, and this is David and Mina. This is set in a modern day New York. We have David, who is a American Jewish jazz art, and he's really feeling the pressures of parental expectations when he sets eyes on Mina, who is a British Pakistani who is also in the arts, who left the UK to sort of get away from her overwhelming family pressures also. A relationship begins, but the two of them soon realise that outside of just the two of them and the cosy world of just being those two against the world, that the pressures of the outside world and the outside families and people and everything like that, they are still there, just waiting and bubbling on the outside just to get in. Now, this is a debut novel, and I do love a debut novel because I find that with a debut, they're slightly more honest. The newness is still there, and the writer is often more sort of raw than they are as they become a seasoned author. David and Mina is a look at the difficulties of relationships when two people get together who have completely different experiences and beliefs. How the artistic temperament was captured within these pages in a way that comes across sort of both passionate and self-absorbed. That plays into the relationship and sort of ultimate outcome as a whole. I find that the catastrophic colliding of the two worlds is really closely represented by the cruelties that the two of them will dish out to one another. The words and the things that they've said to one another can be quite crushing. I've never been to New York, but I really enjoyed the New York setting, especially the nod to the art, because I have heard good things about New York's art scene, and I liked how it was represented within this book. I also really liked the character of Amina's father. He was an unusual choice as sort of my favourite character in the book because he's not the main character. However, I really liked how his genuine caring sort of came over, which sort of counteracted the slightly more neurotic personality of Amina's mother. I did feel like a couple of the issues in this book weren't fully resolved, but it seemed to have been left open, and I don't know if that was left open for the reader's interpretation and for the reader to sort of draw their own conclusions, or whether it was left open with the potential of a second book coming. I don't know. That was a little something that I did take away from reading this. Overall, this was an enjoyable and interesting read because I do like reading about different cultures, about how there are all these just inbuilt differences within us depending on nurturing as we've grown up. And I have to say, I haven't read many books that sort of cover this topic. So let me know if you've read this one or if you have any other recommendations for something of a similar vein. The next book that I've got is another proof copy, and this isn't coming out till spring, May, I believe, and this is Threadneedle. And look at the beautiful proof copy of this. This is such a beautiful, beautiful design. So this is Threadneedle, and basically this is a story that is sort of an urban fantasy. And if you know me, I don't like my fantasies to be too fantastical. I like that it'd be a firm anchor in reality, and this book does it. And this book encompasses witchcraft, which, as you'll all know, I'm obsessed with. I love anything that deals with witches, witchcraft, or all that sort of mystical world. I was very there when I was offered the chance to review Threadneedle. So deep within the hidden streets of London, there is another world, a world that is sort of shrouded in magic. However, magic is the first sin and must be bound. Anna's grown up with constant warnings about magic from her aunt. She's told how magic twists and knots and turns into something dark, and this something dark can turn deadly. And in fact, this is the reason that Anna is given for her parents' demise and why she now lives with her aunt. This is why in a year's time, Anna's sort of burgeoning magic will have to be bound and just squashed before she manages to use it at all. And with this action, Anna will join the group of binders that believe that magic should be squashed down and never used. But then she meets Effie and Attis, who show her a completely different world that she didn't know existed, and she starts to question everything that she's known. This is definitely one to watch out for in the spring. This is going to be book 1 of a new series, which is the, I did write it down, book 1 in the Language of Magic series. So I really can't wait to see how this series pans out, because I loved this one and I want more. I really want more. As I say, I was primed to love this. I love anything to do with witchcraft, and it is a fantasy novel that has its roots very firmly situated in reality. There's also the added realism of high school drama mixed in with this, which I love, sort of coming of age stories. And when you mix in magic with it, well, then, you know, I'm there for it. I enjoy jumping back into a book that delves into high school politics. We see a lot of stubborn teenage behaviour too that really plays true to teenage characters, and that leads them to not want to seek the help of the outside adults, and which leads them to rely upon their own wits for the remainder of the book. The plotline of sort of stumbling upon your own magic really goes hand in hand with teenagers stumbling upon their adulthood. Essentially, growing up feels like you are unlocking your own magic, and friendships at that time can feel kind of like covens. They're very all-encompassing, and there's very strong rules, and these rules must not be broken. Characters are layered and human, yet slightly off in the way that it is totally believable that they have this burgeoning magic within them. And also, there's a library. And most of you'll get it. Most of you'll know why I'm so excited about a library in a book. I mean, we bookworms, we love libraries, don't we? And we love it when libraries play a part in books. At least I do anyway. Overall, definitely one to watch for. Now, the next book that I've got is a slightly different genre yet again, and this is The Last House on Needless Street. So The Last House on Needless Street lies at the edge of a wild forest, and in The Last House on Needless Street lives Ted. Ted is a strange one, and he gets only stranger as the novel progresses. Ted lives with a grumpy and judgmental cat and his preteen daughter Lauren. Ted has some unusual habits, shall we say. He sets up fake dating profiles, and he comes home with the smell of bone and fear upon him. He also spends a fair bit of time in the forest digging. So when a new neighbour moves in who believes Ted has something to do with a family tragedy of her family, things quickly begin to unravel. This is a book from Viper Books, and Viper Books are amazing. This is so perfectly structured that it gave me palpitations at time, and this is exactly what gothic horror is supposed to look like. It's disturbing, it's atmospheric, and it's lingering in a way that will revisit you when you're lying in bed at night trying to sleep. I would say this is completely unputdownable. I had to just take this with me everywhere that I went within the house, much to the amusement of the people that live with me. The creepy narrative is told through various viewpoints, but one of them in particular is very unusual, and I enjoyed the addition of it, but I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away spoilers. And this is another one that's coming much later in the year. I'll mention it again as it's getting closer to time for publication, but this is another one to maybe look up and add to your wish lists or add to your sort of pre-orders and things, because this is one that you don't really want to miss out on either. Final book, you will be glad to know, because this has been quite intense. The final book is this one. This is another proof copy, and this is called Call Me Mummy. So this is about Mummy, who has everything that she could possibly want except a daughter of her own. So one day when she's out and about and she spots heavily pregnant Kim sort of playing on her phone and not really paying attention to her children, she decides that she's just gonna you know, take the child, take the 5-year-old, and so she does. However, 5-year-old Tonya is not the perfect child that Mummy had imagined. She's foul-mouthed, she's outspoken, she's uncooperative, and she keeps asking about the foul smell that's coming from the cellar. Meanwhile, as we could predict if this was a real life situation, the media turn on Kim and start to refer to her as a scummy mummy and insist that her other children should be taken from her too, and imply that everything that's happened to her is all her own fault, which leads Kim into a sort of a spiral of self-despair where she starts to turn on those around her. However, both Mummy and Kim have more in common than they could possibly know, but it's 5-year-old Tonya who's caught in the middle. This is another explosive novel from Viper Books. As I've said, I love Viper Books and I love everything that I've read from them. This book is a challenging read and it feels scarily authentic. The writing style for me was very refreshing. I liked the sort of colloquialisms and the way that it was written in a way that represented the characters that we are reading about, and I liked how the characters used language that really felt like they would actually use, and that for me added that all important element of realism that I need if I'm going to believe a book and I'm going to be invested. I found that the dialogue really made the characters feel less two-dimensional and more as an almost tangible entity really. This is a hard-hitting emotional ride because a good dose of on the edge of your seat tension, which we all need when we're reading a thriller. I would sum this up as to say this is every mother's worst nightmare, but with an added layer of just pure poison, and it's not one to miss if this sounds like the type of book that you might enjoy. So again, I think this one is coming, do we have, February, so this one's coming next month. So again, it might be one to look up and see if you can add to your wish list, serve at your local library, that sort of thing. Make sure that you do it because this one is another one that I really enjoyed. So if you made it to the end of this video, well done. Alien Teddy in the back congratulates you, and as usual, let me know if you've read any of these books, let me know if you're going to, and I will speak to you all soon, and hopefully I'll eventually find a better location to film than sat on my windowsill with my bed and my teddies in the background. So with that in mind, I'm just going to say bye for now.